Welcome to Momentum Mind, the place where ideas meet action and your mindset finds momentum. Every week, we dive into powerful books, revealing lessons that can transform the way you think, act, and live. If you're ready to unlock your potential and see the world through a lens of clarity and purpose, you're in the right place. Let's jump in. Chapter 1: The Emperor's Mirror. The morning light crept across the marble floor of the Emperor's chamber, painting long golden lines that trembled as the breeze whispered through the tall, open windows. The scent of olive trees and damp earth from the palace gardens drifted in, mingling with the faint smoke of burning cedar wood. Marcus sat alone, wrapped in a cloak of deep crimson, his eyes fixed not on the world outside, but on the small bronze mirror resting on the table before him. It was no ordinary mirror. Its surface was clouded with time, rippling faintly like the surface of a shallow pond. When Marcus looked into it, he did not see his reflection, but the countless faces of those who had shaped him, teachers, friends, enemies, and ghosts of his own memories. Each one whispered softly, like distant echoes carried by the wind. The Emperor's day had not yet begun. The court still slept, the guards at the gate stood silent, and the city beyond the palace walls murmured in dreams. But within Marcus's heart, there was no silence. It was filled with questions that never slept, questions about duty, fear, purpose, and what it meant to live a good life when surrounded by power, temptation, and chaos. He touched the mirror's edge and spoke to it, not expecting an answer. How can a man rule others if he cannot first rule himself? His voice was calm, but his eyes were heavy. The mirror shimmered, and for a moment, he saw an image, a younger version of himself, kneeling beside a dying soldier on a battlefield. The soldier's blood soaked into the dirt, his hand trembling as he tried to lift a broken sword. Marcus remembered that moment vividly, the weight of command, the smell of iron and fear, the helplessness of watching someone fade despite all the strength and glory surrounding him. Remember, the reflection whispered. Everything changes. Even emperors become dust. Marcus closed his eyes and breathed deeply. The words were not new. They were the lessons his teachers had carved into his mind when he was still a boy. One in particular, the old philosopher with a voice like stone grinding against stone, had told him, "You cannot stop the waves, but you can learn to stand steady when they crash." He had not understood it then. But now, in the solitude of power, he began to feel its truth. He rose from his chair and walked to the balcony. The city stretched before him, ancient roofs glinting in the dawn, smoke rising from bakeries, the distant call of merchants preparing their stalls. It was beautiful, but it was fragile. He could see the streets where hunger whispered, where ambition burned, where cruelty and kindness lived side by side like twin shadows. Every day, he reminded himself, you are only a man. Not a god. Not a legend. A man made of the same flesh and doubt as those who walked the streets below. The crown on his head was not a shield against fate, it was a test. He leaned on the cold stone railing and whispered again, control the inner world, and the outer world cannot harm you. It was his first meditation of the day. He did not write it down, though he often would later. For now, he let it sink into his mind like a drop of oil into water, spreading quietly until it touched every thought. A sudden noise behind him broke the stillness, the sound of hurried footsteps on marble. A young servant entered, breathless, holding a sealed parchment. "Forgive me, my lord." A message arrived from the northern provinces. "The general requests your decision." Marcus took the letter but did not open it right away. His gaze drifted once more toward the horizon. Beyond those faraway hills, men fought and bled in his name. Decisions made in this quiet room rippled through the world like wind through the grass. And yet, even with such power, he felt the same truth pressing against his chest. He could not control the world, only his response to it. He finally broke the seal and read. The words spoke of rebellion, of betrayal among allies, of the fragile loyalty of men when fear and hunger took root in their hearts. The servant stood silently, eyes lowered, awaiting an order. Marcus folded the parchment slowly. "Prepare a reply," he said softly. "Tell the general to act with patience and courage. Tell him that no man can be harmed by truth or justice." The servant nodded, bowed deeply, and hurried away. When Marcus was alone again, he turned back to the mirror. Its surface was dark now, almost black. Yet faintly, he could still see something moving within it, a flicker of light, like a star lost beneath the surface of a lake. He whispered to it, as though speaking to his own soul. "If I lose everything, my crown, my empire, my name, will I still be whole?" The mirror gave no answer this time. Only the faint sound of wind filled the chamber. Marcus smiled faintly, the kind of smile born not of joy but of understanding. "Then that," he said quietly, "is what I must discover." Outside, the first horn of the city guard sounded, announcing the dawn's beginning. The world was waking. The emperor turned, straightened his robe, and began walking toward the door. But before he reached it, a sudden, distant cry rose from the gardens, a voice, desperate and unfamiliar, calling his name. Marcus froze, the mirror on the table trembled, a faint ring echoing through the air, as though something unseen had been disturbed, and for the first time that morning, the emperor felt the cold touch of something he could not explain, a whisper not from his own mind, but from the world beyond. It spoke a single word. Remember. Then silence. Marcus stood still, heart steady but alert, his thoughts a storm behind calm eyes. Whatever awaited beyond that door would test every lesson he had ever learned, and as he stepped forward, leaving the mirror and its mystery behind, the day began, not with peace, but with a question that would follow him into every battle, every meditation, every dream. Chapter 2: The Garden of Shadows. The palace gardens were not like ordinary gardens. They stretched wide as a small forest, filled with fountains that whispered secrets, marble statues half covered in ivy, and winding paths that disappeared into quiet groves where no footsteps echoed. The air was always heavy with the scent of laurel and wild jasmine, but on this morning, there was something else, an unease that lingered like a shadow just beyond sight. Marcus walked slowly, his sandals brushing against the dew-soaked grass. The sky above was soft with mist, and the rising sun cast a pale gold light through the trees. He followed the sound that had called his name earlier, the one that had broken the silence of his meditation. It had not been loud, but it had felt close, too close, like a whisper breathed directly into his thoughts. A guard approached him at a distance, his armor glinting faintly. "My lord," he said, bowing his head. "We heard the cry as well. We searched the grounds, but found no one." Marcus nodded. "No one." "No one, sire. Only the wind." The emperor looked past the guard, into the thick grove of cypress trees. The wind stirred again, rustling the leaves as if mocking the man's words. "The wind rarely knows my name," Marcus murmured, then motioned for the guard to leave. He continued walking alone, deeper into the garden. The deeper he went, the quieter it became. The sounds of the palace faded behind him, replaced by the hum of insects and the soft trickle of water from a nearby fountain. It was the oldest part of the garden, untouched for many years. The statues here were eroded and faceless, their features worn smooth by time, and the paths were cracked, half swallowed by moss. He stopped by a small reflecting pool at the center of the grove. The water was still, perfectly still, like glass. As he knelt beside it, he saw not his reflection, but faint ripples moving across the surface, ripples that came from nowhere. He reached out and let his fingers brush the water. The ripples grew, spreading outward, and within them appeared a face, not his own, but that of a woman. Her eyes were clear and calm, her hair flowing like liquid shadow. She spoke no words, yet Marcus felt her presence press gently against his thoughts. "You are troubled," the voice inside him said, though her lips never moved. He did not speak aloud. "I am awake," he answered within his mind. "That is trouble enough." She smiled faintly. "You seek stillness, yet you stand in a storm. You speak of reason, yet your heart trembles. Tell me, Emperor, what do you truly wish for?" Marcus stood slowly, gazing down at her image. "Peace. Not the peace of the empire, but the peace within." "Then you must remember," she said. "You are not the voice inside your mind. You are the listener." He frowned. "Who are you?" The reflection shimmered, her features fading like smoke. "A thought," she whispered. "A memory. Or perhaps the echo of your own soul." The image vanished. The water became still again. Marcus stood in silence, the words lingering like perfume in the air. "You are not the voice, you are the listener." He turned away and began walking back toward the palace. Each step felt heavy with meaning he could not yet grasp. His teachers had spoken of reason, of logic, of the mind as a fortress against chaos, but none had ever told him that the fortress itself could whisper. As he reached the edge of the grove, he found his old mentor waiting for him, the philosopher Junius, a man whose age seemed beyond counting. His robes were simple, his hands clasped behind his back, and his eyes, though dim with years, held a brightness like burning oil. "You've been in the old gardens," Junior said quietly. "Few go there anymore." "I heard something," Marcus replied. "A voice." It spoke from the water. The old man nodded, as if this did not surprise him. "The mind has many mirrors," he said. "Some reflect what is real. Others show us what we need to see." "Then what did I need to see?" "That your thoughts are not you," Junior said. "They are the visitors that knock upon the doors of your mind. You may open to them, or you may let them pass." Marcus studied him carefully. "And if the visitor brings fear?" "Then you offer it tea," Junior said with a faint smile. "You sit with it until it grows quiet." To fight your own fear is to feed it. To understand it is to starve it. The emperor said nothing, only looked back toward the grove, where the morning light now broke through the trees in sharp, golden spears. The fountain song carried faintly on the wind, and for a moment, he thought he heard the woman's voice again, soft, distant, almost tender. Remember, it whispered. He turned quickly, but there was nothing, only Junius, watching him with calm patience. Come, said the old philosopher. The council waits. The matters of men never rest. Marcus followed, though his thoughts remained behind, drifting like mist over the pool. As they neared the palace steps, the sound of the city returned, footsteps, shouts, the clatter of armor. Servants hurried past, and soldiers bowed as he passed. The ordinary rhythm of rule resumed, yet everything felt slightly changed, as if something unseen had shifted beneath the surface of his world. He reached the great bronze doors of the council hall and paused. For a moment, his hand hovered above the handle. The words from the garden echoed again inside his mind. You are not the voice. You are the listener. But before he could step inside, a messenger approached from the corridor, pale and trembling. My lord, he gasped. There's been an attack in the north. The general is missing. Marcus's hand froze. The council chamber fell silent behind the doors. The peace he had sought in the garden vanished like breath on glass. He looked once more toward the rising sun, then to the trembling messenger. His voice, when he spoke, was calm, but beneath it lay the faint tremor of something awakening. Then we ride at dawn, he said, and though the day had only just begun, the emperor knew that the storm within and the storm beyond were now the same, and that both were coming for him. Chapter 3. The fire in the north. The night before departure was heavy and sleepless. The air in the palace carried the scent of rain, though the sky remained cloudless. Somewhere in the corridors, a torch hissed as a drop of oil burnt too quickly, and the sound echoed like a whisper of warning through the marble halls. Marcus sat by his window, looking toward the invisible horizon where the northern lands lay, lands that had once been loyal, now swallowed by rebellion and silenced. His armor rested beside him, polished but untouched. He had worn it many times before, yet it never felt like part of him. The metal was cold and unfeeling, while he, despite the crown, was still human, still vulnerable. He turned a small clay figure in his hand, one carved long ago by his daughter when she was a child. A simple thing, uneven and imperfect, but precious beyond measure. He held it gently, as though it were the only piece of peace left in the world. A faint knock sounded. The door opened without a word, and Junius entered, his robes brushing softly against the floor. He carried no torch, only the dim light of a small lantern, and his face was etched with quiet knowing. You cannot sleep, the old man said, and Marcus shook his head. The mind refuses to rest when the world burns. Then you must teach it that the world has burned many times before, and yet the dawn still comes. Junius set the lantern down and looked toward the horizon. Tell me, what troubles you more, the rebellion, or your own heart? Marcus smiled faintly. They are not so different. Both rise against the order I try to build. The philosopher chuckled, a low, gravelly sound. Then perhaps the lesson lies not in control, but in acceptance. The storm does not ask permission to come, it simply comes. The wise man prepares not by stopping the storm, but by learning to stand through it. Marcus leaned back, the weight of his thoughts pressing against his chest. And what if the storm destroys everything I've built? Junius looked at him steadily. Then you will build again. But stronger, and with calmer hands. The empire outside is only a reflection of the empire within. Guard that, and no ruin will touch you. The emperor closed his eyes. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then, with a sigh, Marcus said quietly, tomorrow we ride north. Yes, Junius said. And when you do, remember this, a calm mind sees farther than an angry one. The man who carries peace within himself cannot be conquered, even in defeat. When the old philosopher left, Marcus sat a while longer, watching the lantern flame flicker. It seemed to dance to the rhythm of his thoughts, rising, trembling, almost fading, then standing firm again. He whispered to it as though it were alive. If the soul is fire, he said softly, then I must learn to burn without consuming. Outside, the first drops of rain began to fall. By dawn, the palace courtyard was alive with motion. Horses stamped and snorted, their breath steaming in the chill air. Soldiers tightened their armor, checked their swords, murmured prayers. The banners of the empire hung limp in the damp morning wind, their colors dulled by mist. Marcus walked among his men, saying little. He greeted them not as a ruler, but as one of their own, his voice calm, his presence steady. Fear was contagious, he knew, but so was composure. When the gates opened, the sound was like thunder rolling across the mountains. The procession began its long march north, the hooves of 1,000 horses striking the wet earth in steady rhythm. The road stretched ahead through forests and fields, silent villages, and grey rivers swollen with rain. As they travelled, Marcus often rode apart, his thoughts wandering. The memory of the woman in the garden returned again and again, her voice, her words, the reflection that had vanished like smoke. You are not the voice. You are the listener. Each time fear rose within him, fear of loss, of betrayal, of failure, he tried to listen instead of fighting it. The fear spoke in many tongues, but underneath them all, he began to hear something else, the faint hum of reason, the quiet strength that comes from simply being aware of days past. The land grew harsher, the air colder. Forests thinned into open plains where the wind roared like the sea. The men grew weary, their faces marked by mud and sleeplessness, but they followed still, for their emperor did not waver. One night, as the campfires burned low, a messenger arrived from the forward scouts. His cloak was torn, his eyes wild. He knelt before Marcus, panting. "My lord," he gasped, "the fortress at the border, it burns. The general standard has fallen." A hush swept through the camp. The fire crackled, throwing long, uneasy shadows. Marcus stood slowly, his face unreadable. "And the survivors?" "Few, sire. They say the enemy took them alive, for now." For a moment, Marcus said nothing. The flames reflected in his eyes like molten gold. Then he turned to the messenger and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You've done your duty. Rest." When the man left, Junius approached, his expression grave. "The world tests you, my friend. It always will." Marcus looked into the fire. "The world does not test me," he said softly. "It reveals me." He rose and walked to the edge of the camp. The wind howled across the plains, tugging at his cloak. In the distance, faint against the dark horizon, a red glow burned where the fortress once stood. He thought again of the mirror, of the face in the pool, of the reflection that had whispered "remember." He whispered it now himself, the word carried away by the wind. "Remember." And as he stood there, the flames on the horizon flickered strangely, as if they were not mere fire, but something alive, pulsing, aware. Marcus watched in silence. Somewhere in the darkness beyond the hills, a figure watched him back, and though neither spoke, both knew their paths were about to cross, and the storm had only just begun. Chapter 4: The Fortress of Smoke. The northern sky was the color of iron. Heavy clouds pressed low over the mountains, and the air carried the sharp scent of ash and pine. The army advanced slowly through the valley, their cloaks dark with rain, their eyes fixed on the faint red glow that still pulsed on the horizon. It was all that remained of the border fortress, a place that had once guarded the empire's edge like a loyal sentinel. Now, it smoldered like the memory of a forgotten promise. Marcus rode at the front, his horse steady beneath him, its hooves sinking into the blackened mud. No one spoke. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. When they reached the ruins, the world fell into silence. The fortress was gone, its walls shattered, its towers bent and twisted as though struck by the hands of angry gods. Smoke rose in thin, ghostly lines, curling upward until it vanished into the grey clouds. Charred banners hung from broken spears, their colors drained by fire. Marcus dismounted slowly, his boots sinking into the wet earth. Around him, the soldiers began their grim task, searching for survivors, for signs of what had happened. He walked among them, his gaze calm but piercing, taking in every detail: a child's wooden toy half buried in the dirt, a shattered helmet with no head inside it, the faint smell of burnt oil and sorrow. Near the center of what had once been the main gate, he found the general's sword. The blade was bent, the hilt scorched, but the insignia of the empire still shone faintly on its guard. Marcus knelt beside it, brushing away the ash with his fingertips. "He didn't run," said a voice behind him. It was Junius, standing under the broken arch, his cloak pulled tightly around him. "No," Marcus said quietly. "He fought. And died where duty bound him." Junius nodded. "Then honor him not with mourning, but with memory. The dead need no tears, only truth." Marcus rose and looked around. "The truth lies buried beneath ashes." "Then dig," Junius replied, and so they did. Through the day and into the night, torches flickered across the ruins like restless spirits. The soldiers unearthed what they could: bodies, weapons, fragments of messages written in haste. One parchment, found near the armory, bore only a single phrase scrawled in dark ink: "The firewalks." When Marcus read it, something deep within him stirred. He turned the words over in his mind, again and again. The firewalks. What did it mean? An army? A new weapon? Or something else, something not of men? As darkness fell, the rain stopped, and the wind grew strangely warm. Marcus stood on what remained of the ramparts, looking toward the distant forests. There, far beyond the last line of smoke, he saw flickers of light, too bright to be torches, too steady to be lightning. He called for a scout. "Go," he said. "Find what burns out there. Return before dawn." The scout nodded and rode off, disappearing into the mist. Marcus remained where he was, the night pressing close around him. The ruins whispered. Every crack and creak of falling stone sounded almost alive. He closed his eyes, and for a moment, the silence deepened into something else, something vast. Then he heard it. A voice, faint but clear, like breath on glass. "Do you still seek peace, Emperor?" He turned sharply, but no one stood there. Only the smoke moved, curling like fingers through the air. "Who speaks?" he demanded. The voice came again, closer now, inside him rather than around him. "You build your walls of reason and call them strength. But reason cannot stop what burns beneath it." Marcus's heart beat faster, though his face remained calm. "Show yourself." The smoke swirled, and from it, a figure began to take shape, a tall, slender form with eyes that glowed faintly like embers. A woman's voice, soft and familiar, echoed from it. "The garden," he whispered. "It's you." "Yes," she said. "But not as you remember. You saw me in reflection. Now you see me in truth." He stepped closer, though part of him hesitated. "What are you?" "The part of you that still listens," she said. "The part that refuses to be silenced by fear." The smoke pulsed faintly with light, almost like a heartbeat. "You seek to control the world, Marcus, but the world is not yours to command. You must learn to walk through the fire, not fight it." He looked toward the burning horizon. "And if the fire consumes everything? Then let it," she whispered. "Let it take what is false, so that what remains may be true." Her form began to fade, the smoke breaking apart into the night air. "Wait," Marcus said, reaching out. "What does it mean, the fire walks?" Her voice lingered, barely more than a sigh. "It means the storm has found its shape." Then she was gone. The smoke drifted away, leaving only the ruin and the endless whisper of the wind. And Marcus stood alone, his heart steady but heavy. He felt not fear, but something deeper, a sense that the world itself was shifting beneath his feet, that what lay ahead was no mere war of men, but of meaning. When the scout returned just before dawn, his horse was foaming, his face pale. "My lord," he gasped, "there are fires in the forest, but no camp, no torches, no men. The trees themselves burn, yet do not fall." Junior stepped forward. "And the flames, what color are they?" The scout shuddered. "White. Like the sun." A silence fell over them all. Marcus looked to the horizon, where the light now glowed faintly even in the grey of morning. He turned to his men. "Prepare to move. Whatever walks in that fire, we must face it." And as the first light of dawn broke over the ruined fortress, it seemed to bend strangely, like the air itself trembled. Somewhere beyond the mountains, a low hum began to rise, a sound that was not thunder, nor wind, but something else entirely. The fire was walking, and it was coming closer. Chapter 5. The fire that breathes. The forest ahead seemed alive with light. From a distance, it shimmered like dawn caught among the trees, yet there was no sun rising there, only the glow of something unnatural, something that moved with purpose. Marcus watched it from the ridge as his army gathered below, their armor dull in the mist. None spoke. Even the horses sensed it, their ears flicked, their muscles tense beneath their riders. Junius rode up beside the emperor, his cloak drawn tight against the cold. "Do you still believe it's the work of men?" he asked quietly. Marcus's eyes never left the forest. "No. Men's fires burn and die. This one breathes." And it was true. The flames moved not like destruction, but like a living thing. They rolled through the trees in waves, pulsing, inhaling, exhaling, each flicker deliberate, each spark glowing with eerie intelligence. Yet the forest did not crumble. The trees stood untouched, their bark unblackened, their leaves glistening as though the fire purified rather than destroyed. A rider approached at full speed, his voice shaking as he dismounted. "Sire, our scouts won't go closer. The air grows thick the nearer they come, like breathing smoke, but without the sting. It hums." Marcus turned to him. "It hums?" "Yes, my lord." Like 1,000 voices whispering at once. The emperor nodded. "Then I'll hear them myself." The soldiers murmured in alarm, but Marcus was already walking down the slope. His armor caught the faint reflection of the strange white fire ahead, its glow tracing pale lines across the metal like veins of light. Junius followed, silent, though his eyes flickered with both fear and curiosity. As they entered the forest, the sound became clear, a low, resonant hum, deep as the earth itself. The flames drifted among the trunks like ribbons, slow and graceful. They gave off no heat. When Marcus reached out a hand toward one, it wavered and coiled around his fingers like mist. He felt something then, not pain, not warmth, but a sensation of memory. Images flashed through his mind like sparks: the battlefield, the dying soldier, his daughter's laughter, the quiet pool in the garden. Every moment he had ever lived flickered inside the light and then dissolved. He pulled his hand back, breath sharp. "It knows me," he whispered. Junius watched him carefully. "Or you know it. Perhaps there is no difference." The humming deepened. Between the trees, the flames began to gather, slowly, like water pooling in a hollow. They formed a shape, a figure rising from light, tall and luminous, its form shifting as though woven from smoke and memory. Marcus stepped forward. "Are you the one they fear?" The figure's voice came not through the air but through thought itself. "Fear is the shadow of misunderstanding." Marcus steadied his breath. "Then tell me, what are you?" "The reflection of what you are becoming." The light pulsed brighter, and suddenly the ground around him trembled. Roots shifted beneath the soil, stones cracked. The soldiers at the edge of the forest shouted, their voices distant and thin, as if muffled by the air. Marcus felt the hum enter his chest, vibrating through bone and blood. For a heartbeat, he saw everything, every life in the empire, every face, every fear, every act of kindness, all woven together in one endless tapestry of cause and consequence. He felt the weight of it, the beauty, the sorrow, the fragile perfection of being human. Then the vision broke. The forest snapped back into silence. He fell to one knee, gasping. Junius rushed to him. "What did you see?" Marcus looked up, his eyes wide, the light of the fire still flickering faintly within them. "I saw the truth. The empire is not stone and sword, it's the mind of its people. If that breaks, no wall will stand." Junius placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then the rebellion in the north is not just a revolt of men." "No," Marcus said, rising slowly. "It's a mirror of what stirs within us all." The flames began to fade, retreating back through the forest like a tide withdrawing from shore. In their place remained only the faint glow of embers scattered among the roots. Marcus turned to Junius. "We must not destroy it." The old philosopher's brow furrowed. "Then what do we do?" "We learn from it." They stood together as the last of the white fire disappeared into the mist. Behind them, the soldiers waited, restless and uncertain. None dared ask what their emperor had seen, but all felt the shift in the air, the strange stillness, the sense that something vast and invisible had passed through them. When Marcus finally spoke, his voice carried across the clearing. "We march not to conquer, but to understand. The enemy ahead is not of flesh, it is the part of ourselves we have forgotten." The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. Some looked to Junius for meaning, but the old man said nothing. He only watched the horizon, where the pale light still shimmered faintly beyond the trees, and then, faintly, beneath the wind's sigh, came a sound, a distant rhythm, like footsteps in the ash. Junius heard it too. He turned to Marcus, his voice low. "The fire may walk, my friend, but something else walks with it." Marcus met his gaze, calm but resolute. "Then we walk faster." And as they moved forward, the light of dawn broke across the treetops, not gentle, but fierce, casting their shadows long and sharp across the blackened earth. Somewhere deep in the woods behind them, the white fire flickered once more, just for an instant, forming again the faint outline of a face. The same one Marcus had seen in the garden. She was watching, and she was waiting. Chapter 6, The Whispering City. When the army reached the northern capital, the city no longer looked like the heart of civilization. Smoke drifted between rooftops like ghosts searching for homes that no longer existed. The streets were quiet, not with peace, but with the silence that comes after chaos. Market stalls stood overturned. The fountains had run dry, their basins cracked and filled with blackened leaves. Marcus rode through the gates without a word. The soldiers followed, their armor dull with dust. The city's great bronze doors, once guarded by proud sentinels, now hung crooked on their hinges. No resistance met them, only absence. "Where are they?" one of the captains murmured. Junius, who rode beside Marcus, answered softly. "Gone, or watching." The wind stirred, carrying faint echoes of voices, laughter, argument, song, but when they turned toward the sound, nothing was there. The air felt heavy, as though it remembered too much. Marcus dismounted near the central square. In the center stood a great statue of an emperor long dead, his marble hand raised toward the heavens. A flock of ravens circled the head, cawing sharply before vanishing into the mist. Beneath the statue lay a single object, a bronze mirror, cracked clean through the middle. Marcus stared at it for a long time before bending to pick it up. The surface reflected not his face but the broken sky above. The mirror again, Junius murmured. Yes, Marcus said. But this one's been shattered. Perhaps by truth, the old man said quietly. It tends to break what it touches. They set camp within the city's heart, though few slept that night. Strange noises rippled through the streets, soft footsteps that came and went, whispers that brushed past the ears like the rustling of paper. The men grew uneasy, their fires burning low. Marcus stayed awake, sitting on the steps of the ruined temple overlooking the square. He held the broken mirror in his hands, turning it slowly, watching the way moonlight bent across its fractured surface for a long time. Nothing moved. Then, without sound, a figure appeared at the edge of the temple's shadow, a woman in a cloak of ash-grey silk. Her face was hidden beneath a hood, but Marcus knew her before she spoke. You followed the fire, she said. Her voice was the same as before, soft and even, but now tinged with something sorrowful. I followed the truth, Marcus replied. Then you know what it costs. He rose to his feet, keeping his gaze steady. I've paid for truth all my life. She stepped closer, and as the moonlight touched her, her form flickered, half woman, half smoke, as though she was caught between worlds. This city, she said, was the reflection of your empire. It burned not by rebellion, but by forgetting. The people lost sight of the fire within themselves and worshipped shadows instead. Marcus looked around at the ruins. And I let them. You did, she said gently. Because you believed rule was order. But order without understanding becomes a cage. The fire you saw in the forest, it burns to awaken, not destroy. He held up the cracked mirror. Then what is this? A lesson, she said. When the reflection breaks, only the truth remains. Her eyes met his, luminous as molten gold. The empire will fall, Marcus, if its ruler does not remember that he too is dust. You cannot control the minds of men, you can only light their way. Marcus's voice was low but firm. And if they refuse to follow? Then let them stumble, she said. Even darkness teaches, if the heart is ready to learn. The air shimmered faintly, the scent of smoke and myrrh filling the temple. Marcus felt the weight of her gaze, not heavy, but infinite, like the eyes of something that had watched men rise and fall for ages beyond counting. You speak as if I am both emperor and student, he said, her lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. You are. And then, before he could speak again, she began to fade. The cloak of smoke dissolved into the night, and the last thing to vanish were her eyes, two embers flickering softly before they went dark. Marcus stood alone once more. He looked down at the cracked mirror in his hand. For a moment, he saw his reflection, tired, worn, uncertain. But then the image shifted. In one shard of glass, he saw his army sleeping among the ruins. In another, the glowing forest. In a third, the face of his daughter, her eyes bright with wonder, and in the final piece, something else entirely, a shadow, tall and formless, moving slowly through the streets below. He lowered the mirror at once and turned it. There, in the far end of the square, the shadow moved between the buildings. It did not walk, but glided, its shape fluid, its presence vast. It left no footprints, but wherever it passed, the torches dimmed and the air grew colder. Marcus reached for his sword, though he sensed steel would mean nothing to such a thing. Junius, he called quietly. The old man appeared at his side in moments, his eyes narrowing at the sight. So, Junius whispered, the fire's twin has come. The fire's twin. The reflection of all that burns within us, Junius said. Where light awakens, shadow rises. The figure stopped at the base of the statue and slowly lifted its head. Though it had no face, Marcus felt its gaze pierce through him like a blade of ice, and then, without sound, it began to whisper, not words, but thoughts, sliding like smoke through the mind. You will fail. You cannot save them. The world bends to chaos, not will. Marcus closed his eyes and breathed deeply, steadying his mind. You are not truth, he said. You are fear pretending to be it. The shadow wavered, as if struck. The air trembled. For a heartbeat, Marcus thought it might vanish. But then it lunged forward, fast, impossible, a blur of darkness and cold. The soldiers woke to the sound of steel and shouting. Torches flared. The night broke apart in chaos, and at the center of it all, beneath the broken statue and the cracked mirror, Marcus faced the shape that had haunted the edges of his vision since the garden, the fire's reflection, the darkness that burned without light. Junius shouted his name, but the sound was swallowed by the night. The emperor stood alone as the shadow rose higher, its voice echoing inside his mind. To rule the world, you must first lose yourself within it. And before he could answer, the fire returned, white and blinding, pouring down from the sky like breath from the heavens. When the light faded, the square was empty. Only the cracked mirror remained, its shards glimmering faintly in the ashes. Somewhere in the distance, the ravens began to scream. Chapter 7, The Fire That Speaks. When Marcus awoke, he was not in the city. The air was warm, humming faintly with a pulse that felt alive. He sat up slowly, his armor gone, his body light as if he were made of air and memory. Around him stretched a desert of golden sand, endless and shimmering beneath a sun that burned with no mercy yet gave no pain. There was no sound, no birds, no wind, only the low, steady rhythm of the earth itself, like a sleeping heart. Marcus stood and turned in every direction, but the horizon curved forever away from him. The sky was white, the kind of white that erased all sense of distance. He took a step, and the sand rippled beneath his feet like water. He walked for what felt like both a moment and an eternity before he saw it, a figure, kneeling beside a small fire that burned without smoke. The flames were silver, and they moved as though they breathed. Marcus approached slowly. The figure lifted its head. It was the woman in grey. You crossed the threshold, she said quietly. Not all return. Marcus looked around, dazed but calm. Where am I? In the place between thought and truth, she said. You might call it your soul, though it's older than language. He stared at the fire. The light from it did not cast shadows, yet he could see everything clearly, the shifting dunes, the veins of light beneath the sand, even the faint movement of the air itself. You fought the shadow, she said, and lost. He replied no, she said, her eyes meeting his. You faced it. That is enough, for now. Marcus knelt by the fire. It seemed alive, aware of him. The flames tilted toward him like living things, whispering faintly. What are they saying? He asked. They're not speaking to your ears, she said. They're speaking to what's hidden. He closed his eyes, and the whispers grew clearer, not words, but images. He saw the city again, before it fell. The people laughing in the markets, the scent of bread, the laughter of children running past marble columns. He saw his soldiers sharing bread beside a campfire. He saw his daughter holding a book too heavy for her hands. Then he saw himself, seated on the throne, a crown of gold resting heavy on his head, his face calm but hollow, like a statue. The image burned, and Marcus opened his eyes. Why show me this? Because truth without humility becomes tyranny, she said. You learn to rule men, but not yourself. He was silent for a long time. You said this place was between thought and truth. Then what is truth? She studied the fire. Truth is not what is right. It is what remains when everything false burns away. Marcus looked into the flames again, and this time, he saw something else, himself as a child, sitting in the garden beside his teacher. The man's voice echoed faintly, do not chase peace in the world. Find it in the space between breaths. He could smell the grass, feel the weight of sunlight on his shoulders, and for a moment, he wasn't an emperor or a philosopher, just a boy trying to understand what it meant to be alive. The vision faded, leaving only the silver fire. Marcus turned to the woman. And the shadow? It's still within you, she said softly. As it is in all men. You cannot destroy it. You can only listen without surrender. The fire flared suddenly, its light wrapping around Marcus like a storm of silver wind. He gasped as the ground beneath him began to glow, the sand turning to glass, then to something like liquid light. Why is it doing that? Because you've begun to remember, she said. Remember what? The question that started your search. Her words echoed through him. The question. Yes, he had asked it once, long ago, when the world was simpler. What is the purpose of living if all must end? The fire pulsed brighter, and in its light, the sand shifted. Shapes began to emerge, faces, hundreds of them, carved from the light itself. Some he knew, some he didn't. Soldiers, beggars, lovers, enemies. All of them watching him silently, their eyes filled with the same quiet plea, don't forget us. Marcus's heart ached. I carried their lives in my hands, he whispered. And I failed them. No, said the woman. You believed you could save them from the nature of existence itself. But you were meant to guide them through it. The light began to fade. The fire grew smaller, its silver glow turning amber. Marcus looked at her. Then tell me what I must do. She smiled faintly. Wake up. Before he could ask what she meant, the fire leapt high, surrounding him completely. He felt no pain, only the rush of wind, the thundering of his own heartbeat, the sensation of falling through endless space. Then, silence. He opened his eyes. He was lying on the cold stones of the city square. The night was still, the torches burned low, and the cracked mirror lay beside him. Around him, the soldiers stirred, dazed but alive. Junius knelt nearby, his face pale. You were gone, he said softly. For hours. We thought I wasn't gone, Marcus said, his voice calm, almost serene. I was reminded. Junior studied him, eyes narrowing. Reminded of what? Marcus looked toward the broken statue, then to the horizon, where the first faint line of dawn touched the sky. That the fire within us isn't meant to rule, he said. It's meant to guide. The old man nodded slowly, understanding something unspoken. And the shadow? Marcus's gaze hardened. It follows. Always. But I know its voice now. And it will not rule me. As he rose, the wind began to move through the ruins again, carrying with it the faint scent of something clean, like rain after drought. The soldiers watched their emperor stand at the edge of the square, the first light of dawn catching the edges of his face. His eyes, once heavy with doubt, now burned with steady purpose, but as the light grew, Marcus noticed something at the far edge of the city, a shape standing motionless among the ruins. It looked human at first, but as he stared, it flickered, stretching tall and thin like smoke. He could have sworn it was smiling, and then, just as the sun broke the horizon, it turned and disappeared into the light. Chapter 8, The City of Echoes. The sun climbed slowly over the broken city, painting the marble ruins in hues of gold and rose. Marcus stood still, letting the light touch his face, as if testing whether the world was real. The soldiers moved quietly around him, repairing what little could be mended, burying the fallen, sweeping the ash into mounds that looked like sleeping beasts, but beneath the calm, something strange had changed. The city no longer felt dead, it listened. Every step, every whisper seemed to echo a moment too long, as if the air itself remembered. Junius came to his side. The men are restless, he said softly. They speak of ghosts in the streets. Marcus didn't look at him. They are not ghosts, he murmured. They are memories. Memories don't whisper in the night, Junior said. Sometimes they do, Marcus replied, and began to walk toward the heart of the city. They reached the old amphitheater by noon. Once a place of music and laughter, it now stood silent, its stone seats cracked, its stage half swallowed by vines. But when Marcus stepped inside, a faint hum stirred, like the breath of an audience waiting for the curtain to rise. Why come here? Junius asked. Because this is where they gathered, Marcus said. Where they dreamed. He walked down the stairs to the center of the stage. Dust rose around his feet, shimmering faintly in the sunlight. Then, softly, at first, he heard it, voices. They weren't near, yet they weren't far either. They came from within the walls, the stones themselves humming with fragments of old conversations, cheers, songs, debates. The rustling of a crowd long vanished. Junius took a step back, his face pale. What sorcery is this? No sorcery, Marcus said quietly. The city remembers. Every word, every act. It was never alive because of its stones, but because of what men believed within them. He closed his eyes, listening. The voices began to align, forming a melody of speech and echo. And among them, he heard his own voice, young, confident, full of certainty. Order is the highest good, his past self declared. Through discipline, man becomes more than he is. Then another voice, softer but sharper. And through compassion, man remembers who he is. Marcus's eyes opened. He recognized the second voice. It belonged to an old friend, a philosopher he had once debated publicly, a man later imprisoned for defying the Empire's laws of silence. He swallowed hard. I thought I had forgotten that day. The city did not, Junius said. Marcus knelt, pressing a hand to the cracked floor. If the city holds memory, he said, then perhaps it holds forgiveness too. The light shifted. Shadows stretched long, and the sound of footsteps echoed faintly through the arches above. The soldiers had withdrawn, but Marcus could feel something approaching, a gathering presence, neither hostile nor kind, only watchful. He rose and looked around. Do you feel it? Junius nodded. As if the air itself waits for you to speak. Marcus took a breath. The amphitheater seemed to tremble with anticipation. He raised his voice, not as a ruler but as a man speaking to the unseen. Once, he said, I believed strength was control. That to lead was to shape men into order. But I see now, control without understanding is a kind of blindness. We built our empire on the illusion of permanence, and when the storm came, it turned to dust. The air shivered. The echoes grew louder, swirling through the seats like wind through reeds. I cannot unmake what was done, Marcus continued. But I can remember. I can listen. The voices answered, not in words, but in sound, a chorus of breath and light. For a moment, the amphitheater seemed alive again. Figures appeared among the seats, faint and shimmering, like sunlight reflected on water, men and women, soldiers and children, all watching silently. Marcus's chest tightened. Are you my people? He asked. The figures did not answer. but the air filled with warmth, a feeling of recognition, not of blame. And in that warmth, he felt something shift inside him, something small but profound, the quiet forgiveness of time itself. Junior stared in awe. "What is this, Marcus?" "The echo of what we were," Marcus said softly. "And what we might still become." The vision wavered, fading like mist. The amphitheater fell silent once more. Marcus turned toward the exit, but before he could leave, a single sound stopped him, the child's laughter, faint but clear. He froze. It came from somewhere below, beneath the stage. He descended the broken steps, pushing aside fragments of wood and stone until he found a narrow passage leading into darkness. Junius followed, carrying a torch. The air grew colder, heavier, smelling of dust and forgotten things. They entered a small chamber, half collapsed. In the center stood a pedestal, and on it, resting as if untouched by time, was a scroll sealed with black wax. Marcus approached slowly. The seal bore the emblem of the old Senate, a mark no one had used since the last days before the wars. He broke the wax and unrolled the parchment. The writing was faint, but clear enough to read. "When the fires come, let memory guide the just. Beneath the city lies the truth that binds all men, the circle of thought. He who finds it will see the empire as it truly is." Marcus looked up, his heart beating faster. The circle of thought, Junius frowned. A legend. A myth philosophers whispered of long ago. A place said to hold the original words of wisdom that shaped our world. Marcus rolled the scroll carefully and tucked it beneath his cloak. Then it's no myth. It's here, beneath the ruins. The torch flickered. Somewhere in the tunnel, a sound echoed, a slow, dragging scrape, like stone shifting against stone. Junius raised the torch, eyes narrowing. "We're not alone." The sound came again, closer now, and from the darkness ahead, something began to emerge, not human, but shaped like thought itself, a figure made of whispers and sand, eyes glowing faintly with the same silver light as the fire in the desert. Marcus and Junius stepped back. The thing spoke, not with a mouth, but with 1,000 voices layered together. "To seek the circle," it said, "is to seek what should never be found." The torch wavered, and the chamber trembled. Marcus's voice was steady. "Then you already know I will not turn away." The figure tilted its head, its form rippling like water. "The question is not whether you will find it," it said. "The question is whether you will survive what it shows you." And with that, the light vanished, plunging them into complete darkness. Somewhere deep below the city, a low, distant hum began to rise, like the heartbeat of the world awakening after a long sleep. Chapter 9, The Circle Beneath the Earth. The hum grew stronger as Marcus and Junius descended through the darkness. The torch sputtered against the stale air, casting shadows that twisted across the rough stone walls. The passage sloped downward in a slow spiral, as if the earth itself had been carved by something ancient and deliberate. Neither spoke. Words felt heavy here, as though sound might awaken something that preferred to sleep. The air thickened the deeper they went, warm at first, then cool, then strangely still, as if they had stepped beyond the reach of time. After what felt like an eternity, the tunnel widened into a vast cavern. The torchlight trembled across walls of polished stone, carved with patterns too intricate to have been made by mortal hands. Circles within circles, lines intersecting lines, shapes that seemed to shift when stared at too long. At the center of the chamber stood a great round platform made of black marble. It was perfectly smooth, yet when the torchlight touched it, the surface rippled like water. Junius stared, wide-eyed. "The circle of thought," he whispered. "It's real." Marcus stepped forward slowly. "No," he said. "It's alive." As he drew nearer, faint symbols began to glow beneath the surface, lines of golden light spreading outward like veins of fire. The hum deepened into a vibration that he could feel through his bones. "Careful," Junius warned. "Whatever this is, it wasn't meant for men." Marcus ignored him and reached out. His fingertips brushed the surface, and instantly, the world vanished. He stood in darkness, weightless. No up, no down, no air. Then, all at once, light burst around him. He was standing in a vast hall of mirrors. But these were not ordinary mirrors. They reflected not his face, but his selves. One showed him as a child chasing a butterfly through the garden. Another as a young soldier, blood on his hands and pride in his eyes. Another as an emperor on his throne, wearing the crown that felt heavier than any sword. And then, one more. He saw himself as he was now, standing in the circle's light. But behind him, in the reflection, stood the shadow. It leaned close, whispering words he couldn't hear. Marcus turned sharply, but there was nothing there. Only silence. Then the mirrors began to shift. The reflections moved without him, each version of himself acting differently. The boy wept. The soldier shouted. The emperor turned his back. Only the shadowed reflection remained still, its face unreadable. "What are you?" Marcus demanded. The shadow smiled faintly. I am what you buried beneath duty. Its voice came from everywhere and nowhere, smooth and calm like oil sliding across water. I am the rage you call justice. The fear you named strength. The sorrow you refuse to feel. Marcus's fists tightened. You are what I overcame. No, said the shadow, stepping closer. I am what made you. Without me, you are hollow. The mirrors trembled. The boy vanished. The soldier dissolved. The emperor's crown shattered. Only Marcus and the shadow remained. Face me, the shadow said. I already am, Marcus whispered. Then see me, the shadow hissed, and before he could move, the darkness surged forward, swallowing him whole. He fell, not through air, but through thought. Images flashed past him like sparks, the fire in the forest, the woman in grey, his daughter's laughter, the broken city, the silver flames. And beneath it all, a single whisper, growing louder with every heartbeat. You seek peace in the world, but war in yourself. He struck the ground with a sound like thunder. The cavern reappeared around him. Junius was shouting, though the words were muffled, distant. Marcus gasped, clutching the cold stone beneath him, but the circle had changed. Its glow was brighter now, its light pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. The patterns on its surface moved, circles spinning within circles, forming an eye that seemed to look directly at him. A voice filled the chamber, not the shadow's, not the woman's, but something vast and endless. Thought without feeling breeds despair. Feeling without thought breeds ruin. You came seeking truth, but truth does not serve men, it humbles them. Marcus bowed his head. Then teach me humility. The light pulsed again. Then surrender. He hesitated. Surrender what? The illusion of control. He closed his eyes. For years he had ruled nations, commanded armies, written words that shaped the minds of men. But here, none of it mattered. The circle did not see an emperor, it saw a soul clinging to itself. He exhaled and let go. In that instant, the circle flared with light so bright that Junius shielded his eyes. The vibration filled the air, the earth, the very marrow of their bones. When it faded, Marcus stood still, breathing slowly. His eyes glowed faintly with the same golden light as the symbols beneath him. Junius approached cautiously. What did it show you? Marcus looked down at his hands. That nothing belongs to me, and not power, not wisdom, not even peace. They are borrowed, and I must return them. The old man frowned. Then what remains? Marcus smiled faintly. The choice. The choice? To live with the fire, not against it. The hum began to fade, the circle's light dimming as if satisfied. Marcus turned and started back toward the tunnel. Junius followed, glancing one last time at the marble platform. What will you do now? Leave this place, Marcus said. And lead not as a ruler, but as a reminder. They ascended in silence, the path winding upward toward the faint shimmer of daylight, but as they neared the surface, a low voice echoed from behind them. You cannot rise without me. Marcus froze. The shadow's voice. He turned, and there it was, waiting at the bottom of the stairs. Its shape was clearer now, almost human. Eyes like twin embers stared from its featureless face. Marcus's voice was calm. I know. The shadow tilted its head. Then why leave me here? Because I don't need to fight you anymore. For a moment, the shadow said nothing. Then it smiled. Slowly, its form began to dissolve, unraveling into tendrils of dark mist that drifted upward like smoke. When the last of it vanished, the air grew warm again and Marcus stepped into the sunlight, blinking at the brightness. The ruins of the city spread out before him, still broken, still quiet, but now filled with the soft sound of life returning. The birds had come back, and somewhere in the distance, the temple bells began to ring. But even as the city breathed again, Marcus felt a strange pull beneath his heart, a sense that the circle had not shown him everything. Something was still waiting, something that had followed him back into the light. Chapter 10. The return of the flame. The city had begun to stir, though slowly, like a giant waking from a long slumber. Merchants set up tables amid the ruins, and children ran across cracked streets, their laughter fragile but defiant. Marcus walked among them, his steps deliberate, taking in the signs of life returning. He did not feel like an emperor, nor a soldier, he felt like a man who had glimpsed something beyond himself and returned to a world still tethered to the ordinary. Junius stayed at his side, silent but alert. You move as one who has seen too much, he said softly. I have, Marcus replied. And yet not enough. The wind shifted suddenly, carrying with it a faint scent of smoke and ash. The soldiers stirred, hands reaching instinctively for swords. Marcus's gaze followed the smell to the distant hills, where a faint glow pulsed like the heartbeat of the earth itself. The fire, he whispered. Yes, Junius said. And it moves faster than we expected. Marcus mounted his horse, the leather saddle creaking beneath him. The soldiers followed without hesitation, their eyes sharp, their breaths misting in the cool morning air. The city's people watched silently, their expressions a mixture of awe and fear. Some whispered, "The Emperor walks with the fire," while others crossed themselves and hurried indoors. They rode north, toward the hills where the white flames had been spotted. The path was rough, boulders blocked narrow passes, fallen trees littered the road, but Marcus's presence steadied the men. Wherever he went, the soldiers moved with purpose, their fear tempered by the calm certainty radiating from their leader. Hours passed, though time felt strange, suspended between moments. Finally, they reached the edge of the hills. The glow was closer now, brighter, almost solid. The white fire swirled across the slopes like a river of living light, moving with intent, inhaling the earth, exhaling sparks that floated upward like stars. Marcus dismounted, kneeling to examine the soil. The ground was warm but not burned, alive with energy. He pressed his hand to it, and the sensation was immediate. Voices, countless and layered, whispering memories and desires, joy and sorrow. "The fire speaks," Junius murmured. Marcus nodded. "Not to the ears, but to the mind. It remembers the world, as it should have been, as it still might be." The fire pulsed brighter, reacting to his presence. Shapes began to rise from it, not just flames, but figures, vague and shifting. Soldiers, children, philosophers, and unknown faces danced within the light. And in the center of it all, she appeared, the woman in grey. She did not walk. She hovered, the white flames wrapping around her like a cloak. Her eyes glowed, and when she spoke, the sound reached Marcus not in words, but as a vibration deep within his chest. "The fire walks to awaken, not to destroy. And you, or will you walk with it?" Marcus lifted his gaze. "I will," he said, firmly. The flame surged, wrapping around him like water. Heat and light embraced him, but it did not burn. Instead, it coursed through him, filling him with the memories of the world, the beauty, the sorrow, the choices made and unmade, the lives that had touched his and those he had touched in turn. He felt the pulse of the earth, the song of the forests, the laughter of children, the courage of soldiers, and the wisdom of philosophers long dead. Every act of kindness and cruelty, every whisper and shout, every hope and fear merged into one vast current of life. Junius called his name, but Marcus could barely hear him over the roar of the fire inside his mind. Then the woman's voice, soft, insistent, cut through. "You will guide it, not command it. Listen, and it will teach you." Marcus closed his eyes. The fire's memory became his own. He could feel the pulse of every city, every field, every home. He saw men preparing to fight, others preparing to forgive. He saw loss, yes, but also resilience. He understood then that the fire was not a weapon, nor a force of vengeance. It was a mirror, reflecting the truth of the world and the hearts of those who lived in it. When he opened his eyes, the flames had receded slightly, forming a path forward. The woman in grey hovered at the end, waiting. Marcus mounted his horse again, taking the path into the fire. The soldiers followed, hesitant but obedient. The light of the flames did not blind them, it illuminated the way. As they moved, shapes emerged from the fire, townsfolk, soldiers from the fallen fortress, children from the ruined city. They appeared not as corpses, but as echoes, living memories of what once was, reminders of what still could be. Some reached out, and when Marcus touched them, he felt warmth and recognition, as though connecting to the lives themselves. The army moved as one with the fire, each step guided by the rhythm of its pulse. Yet Marcus knew this was only the beginning. The fire was alive, yes, but it had intent beyond mere guidance. Somewhere ahead, beyond the hills, beyond the visible world, awaited the source, the heart of the flame, and he could sense it now, a presence immense and patient, watching, testing. The woman in grey turned slightly, her gaze fixed forward. "The heart awaits. Are you ready to see?" Marcus tightened his grip on the reins. "I am ready." Behind him, the soldiers tightened ranks. Around him, the fire shimmered, whispering, breathing, alive, and somewhere deep within the hills, a voice rose, not the whisper of the past, not the echo of memory, but something older, stronger, almost sentient. "Then step forward, and learn what it means to carry the world within your soul." The flame surged ahead, and Marcus urged his horse forward. The heart of the fire was calling, and nothing, neither shadow, nor fear, nor memory, could stop it. Chapter 11. The heart of the flame. The hills stretched endlessly before Marcus, each slope glimmering with the white fire that moved like liquid light. The air was alive with vibration, each step they took stirring faint echoes of voices and memories, as if the world itself whispered encouragement and warning at once. Marcus's army followed cautiously, armor clinking softly, swords at the ready, though none dared act hastily. The fire guided them, its rhythm steady, almost intelligent. At the crest of the tallest hill, the flames parted to reveal a vast plain, hollowed as though the earth itself had exhaled. In the center, the fire coalesced into a sphere, hovering slightly above the ground, glowing with an intensity that hurt to look at yet drew him closer. It pulsed with a heartbeat that Marcus felt in his chest, resonating with his own pulse. Junius dismounted beside him, eyes wide. This is no army. No weapon. It is a being. Marcus nodded. Not a being. A memory given life. A force of what the world remembers, and what it fears to forget. The woman in grey hovered at the edge of the plain, her cloak rippling like smoke. It is the heart, she said. The source of all fire, all thought, all remembering. And it tests all who approach. Marcus dismounted. His boot sank slightly into the glowing earth. Every step hummed beneath him, vibrating with the weight of countless lives. The sphere pulsed brighter, rippling outward in waves, and he felt the whispers, not words, but emotions, visions, and questions. Each wave reached into his mind, touching memories he had long ignored, the battles he had fought, the decisions he had postponed, the truths he had avoided. Step closer, the woman said. It will ask what every fire asks, who you are, and why you walk in its light. Marcus took a deep breath and approached. As he did, the sphere shifted. Shapes formed within it, his childhood garden, the battlefield, the ruined city, the soldiers he had led, the philosophers he had debated, the children he had never met but had affected. Every life he had touched, every action he had taken, flowed into the heart. A voice came then, not from the woman, not from Junius, but from the sphere itself. It was neither kind nor cruel, but insistent, infinite. Why do you come, Marcus? He answered, though the words seemed to come from deep within, as if he spoke not aloud but from the marrow of his bones. To understand. To carry the fire without being consumed. And if the fire consumes you anyway? I will endure it, Marcus said. Not to master it, not to control it, but to learn from it. The sphere rippled violently. Shapes within it became clearer, faces turning toward him, eyes glowing. Some were familiar, some strange, some terrifying. One by one, they asked questions, not words, but impressions. Do you love enough? Do you forgive enough? Do you see yourself clearly, or only the image you wish to show the world? Marcus faltered, the weight of so many lives pressing against his mind. He saw every failure magnified, every doubt exposed. The shadow he had faced before appeared within the sphere, leaning close with eyes like coals. You cannot bear this, it whispered. He clenched his jaw. I can. The sphere pulsed again, waves rolling outward, shaking the ground beneath the army's feet. Marcus felt the fire's memory flooding through him, every city burned, every life lost, every joy and grief intertwined in one vast current. He fell to one knee, overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of it, but then a thought reached him, a faint thread of clarity. The woman in grey's voice, do not resist. Let it pass through you. He inhaled and let the fire enter him fully, allowing it to flow through his mind, his heart, his soul. The images ceased to frighten him. Instead, he saw patterns, connections, choices, and consequences. He saw himself as he truly was, not an emperor, not a ruler, not a hero or a coward, but a man bound to the lives of others, responsible for their memories and their futures. The shadow in the sphere recoiled, its form dissolving like smoke in sunlight. The faces of the lost, the suffering, and the joyous merged into a single understanding. Marcus stood, taller than before, though his body was unchanged. He was steady, radiant with calm, the fire within him no longer a threat, but a companion. The woman in grey floated forward. You have seen. You have endured. You are no longer merely mortal, nor are you merely memory. You are the flame that walks with understanding. Marcus looked at the sphere. The fire pulsed one final time, sending a wave of light outward that washed over the hills, the valleys, the ruined city, and even the distant forests. Wherever it touched, people stirred, as if awakened by a dream remembered. He turned to Junius, who had watched silently. It is done. Junius nodded slowly. Not done, but begun. The fire now walks with you, and it will teach all who are ready to listen. The sphere began to rise, slowly shrinking, condensing its immense energy into a single point of light. Then it shot upward into the sky, leaving a trail of silver flame, disappearing beyond the horizon. The wind shifted. The plains were silent, yet the echoes of the fire lingered in the air, carrying faint whispers of guidance, warning, and memory. Marcus breathed deeply. He felt the weight of the world, yes, but not as a burden. As he mounted his horse, he knew what he must do. He would return to the city, to the people, to the Empire, not to rule with fear or command, but to remind them of what the fire had taught him, that memory, thought, and compassion were the true foundations of life. The army followed, their spirits lighter, their eyes bright with hope. Behind them, the hills glimmered faintly, a reminder that the fire, though gone from sight, still walked with them. But Marcus could not shake a lingering thought: the shadow had not been destroyed. It had retreated, yes, but it waited. Patient. Watching. Learning, and somewhere in the distant forests, beyond the mountains and the light of the rising sun, he felt a tremor, subtle, almost imperceptible, yet filled with intent. The fire had spoken, but the shadow still whispered, and Marcus knew that the final test was yet to come. Chapter 12, The Emperor and the Shadow. The city was alive again. Children ran through streets once lined with rubble, their laughter bright and fearless. Merchants shouted across the marketplaces, and the air smelled of bread and smoke and sunlight. Marcus rode through it, the white fire no longer visible but pulsing faintly within him, a quiet rhythm that matched the heartbeat of the city itself. Junius rode at his side, eyes scanning the crowd. "You have changed," the old man said softly. "They can feel it." "I hope they do," Marcus replied. "The fire cannot lead them for me. It guides, yes, but I must still walk beside them." As they reached the palace square, Marcus felt it, a subtle shift in the air, a chill threading through the warmth. He stopped, hand on the hilt of his sword, but he did not draw it. Something was watching. Something patient. A shape emerged at the edge of the square. At first, it appeared human, tall and thin, but as it drew closer, its form shimmered, flickering like smoke against sunlight. The shadow. Marcus's heart did not race. His body did not tremble. He recognized it now, not as an enemy, but as the part of himself he had long feared, the rage, the fear, the doubt that had whispered lies in the dark. It had followed him from the circle, waiting for the moment he was whole enough to see it. "You returned," the shadow said, its voice a chorus of echoes, some harsh, some soft. "I did," Marcus replied, calm and unafraid. "And I am not afraid of you anymore." The shadow moved closer. "You could have ignored me. Left me buried in the circle. You could have ruled without seeing me, without feeling me." "And I almost did," Marcus admitted. "But to ignore you is to ignore myself. And I will not do that." The shadow hesitated, then smiled faintly, a movement almost human. "Then you are ready," it said. Marcus took a step forward. The shadow mirrored him, moving as if tethered by an invisible string. Around them, the city seemed to hold its breath. Even the birds in the square were still, as though waiting for the final act of this long journey. "What do you want?" Marcus asked to teach you, the shadow said simply. "Not to dominate, not to destroy, but to remind. The world is never yours to command. It is yours to witness, to nurture, to learn from." Marcus nodded slowly. "Then we walk together." The shadow paused, then dissolved into a mist that wrapped around him, not cold or threatening, but familiar and warm. Marcus felt its presence within him, a whisper in the mind that reminded him of fear, anger, and sorrow, but also of courage, love, and hope. The fire within him flared, white and golden, and merged with the shadow, blending light and dark into a steady glow that pulsed like a living heart. The citizens began to stir. Children approached, sensing the calm radiating from their emperor. Soldiers lowered their weapons. Merchants and artisans stepped into the open, drawn by the strange harmony of light and shadow that now seemed to fill the square. Marcus raised his hand. "I am not alone," he said. "The fire is not mine to control. The shadow is not mine to fight. But together, they are ours to learn from, and so are we, all of us, if we choose to see." A hush fell over the crowd. The wind shifted, carrying whispers of memory and promise through the streets. And then, from the horizon, a faint glow appeared, not fire, not light, but a reflection of all the lives, all the choices, all the hope and sorrow in the city. It shimmered like a mirror held to the sky. The woman in grey appeared beside Marcus, silent and watching. She nodded once, faint and solemn. "It is done," she said. Marcus turned to her. "Done?" "Done for now," she replied. "But the world will always test those who carry light and shadow together. Remember this, the fire teaches, the shadow warns, and only the heart can reconcile the two." Marcus looked out over the city, feeling the pulse of life in the stones, the air, the people. He saw the soldiers teaching children to defend themselves with skill, not cruelty. He saw merchants helping one another rebuild their stalls. He saw mothers and fathers laughing with their children as if the world had begun anew, and within him, the fire and the shadow coexisted, not in conflict, but in harmony. The pulse of understanding, the rhythm of awareness, the steady beat of responsibility and compassion. He exhaled, a long, steady breath. The journey that had begun with fire in the forest, shadows in the night, and the circle beneath the earth had led him here, not to absolute power, not to triumph over others, but to mastery over himself. The woman in grey began to fade, her form dissolving into silver light. Go now, she whispered. Walk with them, guide them, and remember. The world is alive with lessons, and you have learned the first of them. Marcus watched her vanish, leaving only the hum of the city, the whisper of wind through streets reborn. He mounted his horse, feeling the pulse of the fire and shadow within him, steady, calm, alive. Junius climbed beside him, eyes bright. What now, Marcus? Marcus looked over the city, his gaze steady and kind. Now, he said, we walk forward. Not to rule, not to conquer, not to destroy, but to remind. And the fire will walk with us every step of the way. Above, the sun climbed higher, spilling gold across the square. Shadows stretched long and warm, light and dark dancing together as one. And in that perfect balance, Marcus felt something he had never felt before, not fear, not doubt, not the weight of empire, but the quiet certainty of a life truly lived. The city breathed around him. The fire pulsed within him. And the shadow whispered gently, patiently, always. He rode forward, into the world he had earned, carrying both light and darkness within his soul, ready for whatever would come next. Somewhere beyond the hills, beyond the forests, the horizon burned faintly, hinting at challenges and wonders yet unseen. And Marcus, emperor and man, fire and shadow, rode toward them with a heart steady and unshakable. That's it for today's journey through Meditations by Marcus Stone. I want to hear from you. What book should we explore next? Drop your suggestion in the comments below. And if you found value in this audio story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Momentum Mind so you never miss a chance to grow, learn, and keep your momentum going. See you in the next one.